Hi, everybody. Welcome to Revitalize Meets, the business podcast series, where I get the opportunity, as always, to meet business professionals, entrepreneurs, and key influencers from across the global business network. And today I'm with a connection who has got a wealth of knowledge, wealth experience of helping business owners discover their unique voice in explaining and delivering their message with consistency. Can you please welcome the myth, the legend, the one and only Mr. Alex Owen Hill. Alex, how are you today?
I'm okay. And after that introduction, you were really well. You want is a big round of applause, but we don't have that because we're in a room and together. So
we could get a big round of applause. I appreciate that.
Yeah, let's joke.
Fantastic. Alex, thanks for joining us today on Revitalize Meets. And we've got to meet each other over the last few months or so and at various different events and gatherings, etc. But would you mind sharing to everybody who's watching and to listening a little bit about your business journey so far?
My journey, okay. So I started off as a robotics engineer. I have a PhD in robotics from a previous life. And after I finished that PhD, I decided I didn't want to go into academia and was looking around for things that I was wanting to do. And I realized as I was going through that process that a lot of people can't speak well about the things that they are producing. So in the world of academia, it's about their research. They talk about the technical issues, the technical things that they've developed, but they're not great communicators. And I say I am one of those people. You know, I'm an introvert, I'm an engineer by nature. But I did grow up in a family of actors and acting teachers. So my mom's a voice coach, and I became a voice coach over the course of kind of 5 or 6 years, whilst also helping companies, like specifically tech companies and robotics companies at the beginning, to talk about themselves online through their marketing, creating content for their companies and for their audiences. And that's kind of formed into my business over those kind of 5 or 6 years that I've been doing it, to be that I help primarily tech companies or also business owners to uncover a unique voice for their business that really makes them stand out and help them to attract the people that they want to work with. But as a journey, it's been one of those, it's easy to string that sort of sentence together because, you know, you do it all the time. You go to networking events, you go to Revitalize or something, and you've practiced that bit. You've talked about it many times. So it sounds, oh, well, that person knew a lot about what their business was going to be. But actually during the process, it's a lot of just kind of testing things out and going, is this what I want to do? Is this what I'm doing? Is this my focus? You know, so that's a lot of what I help companies with as well. You know, you'll come into a company and they'll know what they do, but they don't really know what they do in a way to describe it. And I kind of help them with that. Yeah.
And it is true though, because many people test and measure what they do and how they do it, and then they get the response back from their audience, like you would probably do as well from an audience perspective as well. Did you find that through the time that you're learning your craft, learning the business at the same time? Did you test it quite a bit to get the right mix?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still testing really. So in terms of, I started off thinking, okay, I'm going to be teaching presentation skills and voice, which is something that I do. I still take on like individual coaching clients for that sort of thing. But for that part of the business particularly, there was a case of going, okay, what's the market for this? So I came in and I went into I was learning voice at the same time, but I went in and I thought, okay, well, what's a group of people who are going to want this type of service? And I saw Toastmasters. So I went into Toastmasters, and, you know, I'm still part of that kind of world, even though I don't really agree with a lot of the way that Toastmasters teaches. I'm still within that world. But at the beginning, you know, I was thinking, okay, this is my market. And I went in there, and then it became clear to me that wasn't a market that was a very good one for what I can do. And then I went into the world of professional speakers, and I am a professional speaker. But initially I was thinking of it, that was my market as well. Now I realize that's my colleagues, that's the people on the same level of me, the friends that I can make in the business, much better than our market. And finally, I've kind of gone back to the beginning and realized that tech people are the people who I understand, I think, the problems of tech communication more than anyone else, because I am one, and I've gone into that business, and it makes sense because that's what I've been doing, creating content for these type of companies throughout that whole process, I've just thought of it. I just kind of thought that was a side thing while I was building this other bit of my business. Yeah. And more recently went, oh, actually, this is the same thing. I'm helping people to communicate on behalf of their business. It's just that the medium is, written blog posts or websites or all of those bits of content. They're not much different from presentation skills and video skills.
Yeah.
They're the same, but people don't think of them as the same, so and it's still the process of discovery. I'm still sort of, with every client you learn, because of the way that I work with companies. I don't just come in and do a bit of content. I'll dig my teeth into a company and work with it. And that'll be my kind of primary focus for the course of 6 months minimum, more likely a year, a couple of years ongoing. But through that initial process, when you're doing that investigation into what really makes that company different, like that's your world, that company. So every time I get a new company, I'm like relearning loads of stuff through the lens of that company and all of their markets, which are slightly different than the other markets. So it remains a process of experimentation, which as a researcher is probably a good thing for me, because that's something that I really enjoy and something I really liked from academia.
It's great though you've identified a niche in your market, because many people have a wide brushstroke and they cover various different principles, but you're focused on the technology side of things, which I think is absolutely superb from your behalf. And that test and measure has given you that traction to get to where you need to be. But also is a good one for you in regards to challenges, because at the moment we're living in a different type of virtual hybrid role that we live in now, living in our little boxes like we're doing at the minute, or, we are doing small in-person type of catch-ups as such. Have you found there's been a biggest challenge reaching your clientele through online and offline to find their voice?
In terms of working with my clients, not so much. I've always worked internationally. I just in the last kind of couple of years, really, I got a client, was the first one that was actually in the UK. Everyone else is abroad and elsewhere. Yeah. So that's something that's not been a problem for me. But for them reaching their clients, it's changed, because maybe they will have turned up to trade fairs, or a lot of the time in the tech industry, that trade fairs is where you get a lot of your leads, and they disappeared and they've gone online. And like tech trade fairs are not very good online, because unlike if you're in like the market of speakers, for example, if you go to a professional speaking conference, everything's very good online. All the engagement's very good, because that's what we do as a business. We engage. But if you go to another market, in my case, tech, for example, the exhibitor hall. So if you pay for a booth in a conference, you expect people to walk past your booth and then they talk to you, and that's where you get your leads from. Yeah. But online, it flips it completely upside down, and people have to actively go to the exhibitor booth in the breaks between the different talks. Well, of course, we don't want to do that. We want to go to our kitchen. We want to have a coffee. We want to get off away from the computer screen. So some of my clients have been, over the course of COVID, they went heavily into trade fairs at the beginning, and then went, well, this is just not helpful. This is not a good return on investment for us, because nobody's turning up to our booth. And that's because it suddenly changes it from walking up to a booth to being, we have to actively go out and kind of try and grab those people who are in that conference and use the online marketing techniques to be able to engage with them, which is totally different from the way that it normally. My clients, there's been a difficulty, particularly, and we're working towards ways that work, but it has taken a while to be able to get used to that. Yeah.
It's interesting to see how that sort of tech wise works, and especially face to face, and especially exhibitions wise, how that can bridge the gap now, especially online and offline itself. In regards to the likes of top tips, I mean, we talk about you do a lot of coach sort of voice training. You do a lot with actually how they deliver their message consistently, online and offline. What would be your top tips to a business owner who's out there now wanting to really bridge the gap? Your top 3 tips to discovering their unique voice.
In terms of discovering your unique voice in speaking, it's slightly different than when you're doing it, in written things online. But in the end, the voice should be consistent. So I think that's one of the things that I try and drill home with people, is that whatever medium people contact you in, they should get a consistent experience, whether you're talking to them in a networking situation, doing a podcast interview like this one, or they're coming to your website, or they're seeing your LinkedIn posts. They should feel like they're coming to the same business through that. And I think that's something that a lot of the time there's a disparate feeling through different aspects of a business. That's kind of one of them. One of them is to be yourself, I guess. I swither to use the word authenticity, but really that's what I'm talking about. It's just that I think authenticity has become a bit of a buzzword, but there is a standard way that people talk about businesses, and you hear it all the time, and people find it very difficult to break away from that, because it feels like that's the right way to talk about business, but it isn't, and it means that you end up sounding exactly like everyone else in your market. So leaning in on those aspects of your personality that are uniquely you is something that can really change how you communicate. And like for me, for example, I'm, as I say, like in my story there, I was talking about the fact that I'm an introvert and I'm an engineer, and I'm not naturally a great communicator, but I've learned over the years how to become a great communicator, and that's what I teach people. Like leaning into the fact that I'm an introvert and don't like talking to people is something that I do all the time in business. And, you know, for a business like mine, it would seem a bit weird to say that, because really you want to come out and you want to be like, I'm very confident, I can talk about my business easily. And people kind of gloss over those other aspects of themselves. But every time that I talk about the fact that I'm introvert and I find it difficult, the people who are receptive to that message in the audience are like, oh, great. You know, he also finds this difficult. Maybe it's not something that I can't do, as I thought I couldn't do it. Maybe I can get better, which is something that, you know, is important to me. But that's just leaning into something about my personality that otherwise he would avoid. And a third tip, well, I think one of my core tips for like every aspect of communication is practice. So as a voice coach and a presentation coach, I very much lean into the process of practicing, and like how are you practicing? Not just are you repeating the presentation that you're going to do, but like what are the practice strategies that you're putting in place to make sure that every time you're developing a particular presentation or a video, for example, you're actually getting better and not becoming worse. And I think a lot of the time what people teach in the world of presentation skills actually gets people worse in how they communicate, which is not great. So get good at practicing. I would say whatever medium you're in, get good at rehearsing that and really dig in.
Yeah, I think it's great when you talk about that last point there, the practicing part of it. It's, you know, you can over practice it sometimes, but actually looking at the content and how you deliver it and looking at the more finer detail on that practice, you know, and do it regularly, becomes more confident when you present it to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I'll grab out a word there that you said there, which was over practice or over rehearsal. I don't believe in over rehearsal. I think that people talk about over rehearsal, and what they are talking about is bad rehearsal. So I've heard plenty of, you know, presentation coaches who are people in the same space as me saying, oh, avoid over rehearsal. And actually, I think that mindset stops people who could be great from becoming great, because people go, oh, I don't want to over rehearse, so I'll just rehearse it a little bit and then I'll do it until it feels, I don't know, I'm not sure what it's supposed to feel like, but I'll do it just a little bit and then I'll get up on stage and then I've not over rehearsed it. But actually, if you look at actors, you know, my family are actors don't, there's no such thing as over rehearsal in acting. You know, people will rehearse the same play multiple times. They'll like dozens, hundreds of times through the rehearsal process, and it doesn't become less real. It becomes more real during that process. But what they have got is a rehearsal process that means that you're not becoming like a robot over the course of the time that you're rehearsing, which is I think it's a shame, this idea of over rehearsal, because it just keeps a whole load of people in mediocrity fearing to get better. And
I think that's a good point as well. It's like people stop themselves from trying to do it. It's giving them blockers to actually get to where they want to be. Like, oh, I'll not do it again. I'll not try it this time, but just keep going with it and keep going with that practice and, you know, make it happen.
And making sure that you're using the right strategy, like the right strategy. Yeah, I mean, it is possible to rehearse something so that you become a robot. Then that's not what you want, but you need to know what you're looking for in each rehearsal.
Yeah.
And that takes a bit of strategy.
It does indeed. Great points. Thanks for sharing those. If you're watching and listening to these, please write them down and use them. But one of the next questions I would like to ask you, Alex, is that we talk a lot about self-reflection. We talk a lot about time that we take out for ourselves to reflect on our business, either via training or connecting or learnings. What's been your biggest learnings, or what's your way of reflecting on what you do and how you do it better?
I mean, I think I'm addicted to being trained. Probably, I incorporate, because I talk about performance skills and things. I go to a lot of different trainings and I develop a lot of different aspects of my performance. So over the course of the lockdown, I've been to a lot of online courses in clowning. I'm a clown. I do that sort of thing. Improv acting. I've been doing that for years, and then I've been doing some of that online. I'm doing a comedy writing course at the moment, sketch writing, like all of the. I just keep loading things up in my learning so that I can teach my audiences better, but also just because I enjoy them. So that's something at some aspect. But in terms of business, I think some of the learnings that I've had, they're all about marketing basics, really. I've been a marketer for the whole time I've had my business, and I know the basics, but you just have to keep on coming back to those basics. And every time you get back to them, you learn them again, and you're like, I understand this in a deeper way now. Yeah. Just about, talking to people about things that they have problems with, like talking to people's problems, talking on behalf, like thinking through the eyes of the person that you're talking to when you're creating content. It's like 101 basics, but most people have problems doing that. Most of the problems I see with clients when they write for themselves or when they're talking on stage is that they are not thinking, they're thinking about their stuff. They're not thinking about what the audience wants. But you can say this hundreds of times, and it'll take some time for someone to suddenly to click, for you to go, oh, that's what you mean when you say look through the person's eyes when you're communicating. So I think that, yeah, it's very simple. Marketing is extremely simple, but simple doesn't mean it's easy.
But it's funny though, because like a lot of people, as you say, will look through their own eyes, but won't look through the other person's eyes of what they see in you. I think that happens so much in business. It happens in all of our personal lives as well. If we're presenting on stage or being in one of our plays or acting, etc. as well, it's actually looking at what the audience wants to see and actually project that, because then they'll get more enjoyment, and from a business perspective, they'll engage more into that.
Yeah, they'll engage more. And also, maybe even to take away the kind of ego side of it, of that, how they're seeing me, it's more important how they're seeing their own problem. So if you can help people to view their own problem in a different way, which is what they want in the end. In the end, they don't care about you as the speaker, which is hard because, like, as professional speakers, we have quite an ego about us. But people don't mind. You can think of it as a buyer as well. Every time I kind of, a lot of the insights I've had about how to talk about my own business, so when I realize how I view other people's businesses, and it's not about their business. Like sometimes I'll go, oh look, they're a great speaker. I'll keep learning from that person, but it's because of the insights that they give me about myself, really. And the mode of delivery is like, as long as it's not actively getting in the way of me learning that stuff, which a lot of the time is the problem. Like people don't communicate well, so but great teachers on behalf of our business, we are teaching people the benefit of our businesses.
Yeah, we lost you there for a second or two. The
yes, my thing popped up and said, would you I will plug in a cable.
Okay at the moment, I think, anyway, so it should be fine. Yeah, it should be fine. Thanks very much. But how can everybody's been watching and listening today, how can everybody get in touch with you in regards of connecting with you, start the conversation and discussing their unique voice?
Well, you can contact me at my website, which is createclarifyarticulate.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, which is just my name. I don't think there's any other Alex Owen Hill with this particular double-barreled surname. And you can get me at alex@alexowenhill.co.uk as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
As well.
And if you have been watching and listening, you've picked up a few sort of golden nuggets of information there from Alex, please reach out to him and have that conversation to find out how he can help you bridge the gap with your presentation skills, with finding a unique voice, especially with marketing yourself as an individual, and how to really engage your audience, either from tech or if you're looking just to get better at doing what you're doing, especially online and offline. Alex, thank you so much for spending the time with me this morning. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to welcoming you along as a signature speaker to one of our up-and-coming Revitalize business events online.
Yep, it's going to be good.
It certainly is indeed. Thank you very much to everybody who's been watching and listening today. This has been Revitalize Meets. Stay tuned for many more interviews coming online with many global business connections from across the business network to find out more about what they do, how they do it, and how we can help one another. Thanks again from me, from Alex. Goodbye, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe, and as always, keep connecting. Speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye for now.